6:25.
Yes.
So I think it's only right for to
Yeah,
start.
feel free to start as soon as you're ready.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I want to thank you all for coming and for responding to my invitation. This study to this lecture concerning the war in Ukraine. The purpose of this lecture is for us to examine Africa's position where it is in relation to this war. What are the implications of this conflict that is going on today when we are talking about Africa? Because whether we want it or not, we are part of the global community, and the major players on the global stage, whatever they are doing today, it affects us. It does affect us, whether we want it or not. So it is only right for us to approach and look at the world in its entirety without looking only on the African continent or only on our, at our tribes or only at our nations and then our individual African societies and communities where we are all around the globe. So like I said, the title of this lecture is called "Why the Ukraine Conflict is Part of the Grand Neocolonial Strategy." Now, the Ukraine conflict from an African perspective, that is what we, on the other side, we have called it. Where does Africa fit in, and what should Africa do about it? So I hope you are ready, as I am. Today, I want to examine what I will call yesterday, today, and tomorrow. When we are talking about yesterday, we are talking about history and the past. When we are talking about the present, we are talking about, when we are talking about today, we are talking about the present. And then when we are talking about tomorrow, we are talking about the future. What is the future? So we will be looking at what is the future of Africa and its people with regards to what is happening today and what has happened in the past. Now, history, why it is important is that history is the strands or threads that are interwoven by the forces of what Nkrumah called the historical and material forces. And when these material forces, they weave these strands, then they give us the fabric that is the present and the future. So in other words, to have a present, you have to have history, or you have to have the past. And to have the future, you have to have the present and the history all together combined. So whether we like it or not, we are, okay, or whether we are aware of it, whether we like it or not, or are aware of it, we are making history with our actions and inaction. So whether we take a step or we don't take a step, we are making history. And that history can be a mediocre history that won't be remembered, and that like will be washed away. Or that history can be a history that is worthy of remembrance. Like when we look at what Nkrumah and his generation achieved, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the Black Panther. So all these people, what they did starting in the 1940s, all the way through the 1960s. And then when you go in the middle there, you can see Thomas Sankara, people like Thomas Sankara, but all the people in between there, you can see that their history is very hazy. It is not very clear. Some of the names, like for example, the presidents who existed, if you are talking about the African stage, who existed in the period of when Thomas Sankara was there, is very difficult to remember their names if you are talking about the African stage. So that history, whether we are participating actively to mold the future, to be able to influence the future in a positive way and in a negative way, that history is being made, and is either being made for the good or for the bad. So I want to suggest that this generation in which we are living, all the people who are alive in our time like this, starting 2020, I think we have a very big duty upon us to mold, a future that will be remembered, to mold a history that will be remembered by the coming generation. If we look at the world events that are going on, the events that are surrounding us today, the geopolitical events, that are going on today, because these are affecting Africa greatly, but it looks like very few people are understanding what is going on today. Now, I want to look at neocolonialism, as we said, and its strategy. Now, I want to start with the gentleman called General Wesley Clark. General Wesley Clark, he was one of the leaders, one of the generals who led the war, the NATO war in Kosovo. There was a war between 1997 and 1999, June. It was the February of 1997 up to the June of 1999. In that war, there was a struggle between the Serbs and the Albanians. And NATO came and intervened for certain reasons, and which of course are neo-colonial in nature. Now, I don't want to delay on that war, but General Wesley Clark, after serving in this war, he came back to the Pentagon, and he met a few people, because now he was stationed at the headquarters in Pentagon, and he came to meet people like Donald Rumsfeld in 2000 and going up to 2001. If you remember, 2001, that is the year in which President George W. Bush was elected to the president of the United States. And that is the same year when the 9/11 incident, or the attack on the United States, the Twin Towers, happened. That is the same year, in the September of that year, 2001. Now, General Wesley Clark, he spoke to Donald Rumsfeld, and he got information that they were supposed to attack Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Somalia, and so on. And then this disturbed him very well, very much. Remember, he's a four-star general. You would think that he was supposed to know all these things before they happened, beforehand. But it looks like some of the things they don't know them, even the soldiers, when they are going to the front line. So he was a bit of disturbed to the extent that he started complaining about it. Now he came and started delivering lectures, and he started writing even certain books because he was dissatisfied with what is going on at the Pentagon and in Washington. Because you can't just come out with the list because they came out with the list of the countries that are going to be attacked in the next 10 years, and this is the year when we are in 2001. So he was disturbed and he started giving lectures. Now, in one of those lectures, which he gave, he said that America's foreign policy was, there was a coup in the American policy, in the foreign policy of the American, American as a nation. So he was saying that the democracy of the United States has been attacked. There is a coup in the foreign policy. So he started giving these lectures in 2007. Now, I think that for him, what he did not understand when he was talking about a coup in the United States or in the foreign policy of the United States is that people like Kwame Nkrumah had written a book called Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism, which he published in 1965. This was a very this was a groundbreaking, thesis by Nkrumah, in which he was spelling out, especially to Africa, how neocolonialism is working and how it is coming to take over the continent if we don't unify. And then he gave all the solutions, which are very well known within the Pan-African world. Now, in this book, Nkrumah points out some bodies in the United States that have been, attacked or which have been working together contrary to the official policy of the United States. And they are not working in the interest of the many. And one of these organizations, or some of these organizations, is the CIA, the FBI, Hollywood, and we have Wall Street and the American military industrial complex. And all these organizations, they appear as if they are private organizations, but they have a way they converge in what Nkrumah called an octopus. So I think that people like General Wesley Clark, these are some of the things he did not understand or he had not read about in the past. But also in Kwame Nkrumah's book, Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism, there is a book actually which was written by an American, which he quoted. That book is called The Invisible Government. And that gentleman who wrote it was called David Weiss. David Weiss wrote extensively on the invisible government, which had hijacked the United States policies. Now, this book, Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism, actually it would help to accelerate the overthrow of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah from power, which would consequently happen in 1966. The Pentagon protested, or the United States Department, protested a lot about this book. And me, myself, when actually, as I was coming through and understanding what Pan-Africanism is, and I came across the title of this book, and then got to understand the events that surrounded the publication of this book, I tried very, very hard to find this book so that I can witness myself why the the imperialistic camp, why the Western world was so much protesting about this book. And lo and behold, there's a lot of information which is relevant today as it was relevant in 1965. So even today, I'm sure these people, if you try to break this information down and bring it out, they will protest against it. Now, in his mentioning of the countries, I'm talking about General Clark, the countries that would be attacked. He did not mention Russia and China. And why? I think it goes on to show that, like I said, a lot of them, even the generals or the lieutenants and other soldiers in the United States military, they don't know, they are not given this information to understand why countries are being attacked and which countries are going to be attacked, and all that information. Because otherwise, if these soldiers or generals knew the reasons why they are going to attack these countries, I think they would not participate. They would refuse to go and participate in these wars. Now, here I want to look at one of the videos. It is just around 2 minutes, and I will not even finish the 2 minutes of what this General Clark is
we attacked
about.
Afghanistan. I was pretty happy about that. We should have. And then I came back to the Pentagon about 6 weeks later. I saw the same officer. I said, why haven't we attacked Iraq? We still going to attack Iraq? He said, oh, sir. He says, it's worse than that. He said, he pulled up a piece of paper off his desk. He said, I just got this memo from the Secretary of Defense's office. It says we're going to attack and destroy the governments in 7 countries in 5 years. We're going to start with Iraq, and then we're going to move to Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. I said, 7 countries in 5 years. I said, is that a classified memo? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, don't show it to me. He was about to show it to me. He said, because I want to talk about it. And I sat on this information for a long time, for about 6 or 8 months. I was so stunned by this, I couldn't begin to talk about it. And I couldn't believe it would really be true, but that's actually what happened. These people took control of the policy in the United States.
Okay, so that is General Wesley Clark. We have all heard his remarks. I have another video, and I've shared this presentation on the main platform, but if anyone wants to have their hands on it again, I can repost it, but I've already posted it there for everyone to have a copy on our platform. Now, I want to look at after those attacks that happened in the past. You know, we will not go very far, but we will start from Afghanistan, where these imperialists have gone, aggressors have gone, and then they came out last year. You know, we can talk of Iraq. We can talk of Libya. We can talk of the continued, you know, bombardments in Somalia with drones. You know, the provocations you have seen in Ethiopia also. All these enterprises, Russia and China, were not present, but we have seen the chain of attacks that have been going on. Even we can go as far as you know, Vietnam, Korea, and all these nations. Almost, you know, ever since the last period when the United States was formed, for the last 300 years, it has almost been at war. But even when you go back to all the European civilizations, because the United States is a continuation of Western civilization and European civilization, all of them have almost never been at peace. They are mostly waging war in one way or another, and this war is in, you know, is carried out at the forefront is through deception, that they are carrying out something noble, something moral. You know, like you can talk of slavery. It was carried out in Africa, and colonialism. They justified it that they are bringing civilization, and they are bringing Christianity to the people. So these were the justifications, but in the actual sense, it was the other way around. So China and Russia, after the withdrawal from Afghanistan. So I would like to say that whenever the ruling class in the Western world wages a war, there is two things in their mind. One, they want to transfer wealth from the many in their countries or even around the world, you know, into the few, the hands of the few, whether that is the military industrial complex, whether it is the bankers, you know, either way you can speak, you know, you can talk of it. So this is what we saw in Afghanistan, that they spent more than 2 trillion. And when they say that they spent money, 2 trillion in Afghanistan, they were robbing the American public or the Western world and spending money on this war. But when you go to Afghanistan, you don't find that money in Afghanistan. That money is not there. The Afghani economy is still in the same situation, that it has not grown to 2 trillion. So that means the money was not going to Afghanistan. It was going into the pockets of a few people. If anything, what they took to Afghanistan was just destruction and robbing them, because after the Taliban came back to power, the United States stole 7 billion from them, and they are still asking for that money to be returned. And the United States and its European, aggressors and killers have refused to return the 7 billion that belongs to the Afghani government, to the Afghanistanese government. So there is two things. They want to transfer money into the hands of a few and rob the majority of the people, and even in their countries and around the world. Then there is the other reason is that whenever there is an economic collapse in the Western world, you see these kind of occurrences that they will provoke a war. Whenever there's economic depressions in the Western world, they will provoke these, senseless wars. You can go back even the war in 2001, which was, we can argue about it. We can discuss about it, that the war was provoked by the attack on Twin Towers and the attack on the United States. But in 2008, if you remember, there was a big global economic crisis in 2008. And the United States was in a lot of trouble, and the whole Western world. This 2008 economic crisis shook them a lot. It shook them a lot. And if you go back even and examine the videos of that period, what was happening in the Western world, the financial structures were shaken, to their core. And who emerged, who was the first person to emerge out of this economic crisis? It was China, who was the first. It was the first country to emerge successfully out of this economic crisis. So these are the two things which I can think of. And these economic crises, normally they cause those wars in a certain way that when they occur, so let me go back a little bit. So after the attack on Afghanistan and Iraq in 2001, when they started that war in Afghanistan, you can say that after 10 years, we go to 2011. 2011 is the year they attacked Libya. And if you notice, also economic depressions or economic problems normally happen in a period, after a period of 10 years. Those are the cycles in which they happen. So if you look at 2011, that is the year they attacked Libya, and they went to Libya after.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Jeez, thanks, Dominic.
Can you mute yourself, Barry? Barry, can you mute yourself, please?
Who?
Yeah, so when they attacked Libya, they went and ransacked, because Libya had a lot of gold in the central bank. So they went and ransacked Libya and took away even the gold which belonged to Libya as a state. And then they started pumping even the oil, Libyan oil, out of the country. And all this went to enrich the Western world so that, to caution them from the economic depression that was happening. Now, 2011 added 10 years from 2020, 11, where do you fall? Again, you fall close to 2020 and 2021. And you can see even the events which are going on. So in 2020, if you go and examine events around 2020, you can talk of people like Robert Kiyosaki, when they were, who are big capitalists and investors, and people like Ray Dalio. 2020, they were saying that there is something which is happening behind this coronavirus. There's something which is not right, because there has been a decline in the economy. There has been an economic depression. There has been economic contractions in the Western world. So the emergency of this coronavirus, it has something hidden behind it, which is not being said. And you have seen a lot of chaos around coronavirus, people disputing it, going up and down, Fauci coming and commenting, this and that. All theories have been, put out there for us to believe, and doctors have come and then they have disputed them. So all kind of theories. So there is something that is going on. And these economic cycles, these economic depressions, they happen in cycles of 10 years, 10 years, 10 years. So that is why it is important for us to study history and study these cycles. So with that being said, I want to submit to you that the withdrawal from Afghanistan has a couple of reasons. And one of those is the stubbornness of the Afghani people, which has made the war costly after more than 20 years of resisting socialization into the Western way of life, because they tried to do engineering. They tried to do engineering of the social systems in Afghanistan, to bring like they say, our way of life, our Western way of life. You have heard this being used by various leaders, presidents in the United States and presidents in European capitals, our way of life. So this way of life of neoliberalism, they try so much, the neoliberal way of life, they try to impose it, on the rest of the world, as we have seen, vote, human rights, and all this, as if they are the only ones who know about human rights, and all the other people, they only know about, violating these human rights. So these 20 years of resisting by the Afghanis also, I would like to say that has made the war in Afghanistan costly. And that is why they had, to come out so that they can pivot towards the South China Sea. So pivoting towards the South China Sea is because they were seeing that they are losing, they are focusing on the wrong things right now. They are focusing on Afghanistan, and these guys are stubborn. They have refused, to change in a certain way which these Western people want them. And yet there's a bigger problem which they think they attend to. So one thing I'm seeing here is that they have so much which they are holding in their hands, and they are failing to deal with it. So they have to drop some of the things. There is one thing which a political economist and political commentator who's called Farid Zakaria from the United States, he called it imperial overreach. This time I first heard it from the political scientist and venture capitalist Eric Lee. He called it imperial overreach. So they can't now afford to fight many battles at the same time, you see? So, and now they are seeing that the most important battle now is China, because China is overtaking them. China has been growing rapidly. The rapid rate, in every sense, technologically, financially, in every way, China has been growing rapidly. Now, China has also been coming to help Africa in certain ways, as I will show. Not entirely, but it has been helping Africa in a certain way. And so they look at Africa, if you compare to the resources which Africa has, and for example, Afghanistan, it is just a joke, because we can say, like, for example, a single country like Zimbabwe has more than 18 trillion in the ground of resources. You know, Congo around 38 trillion. So Africa is the grand prize for everyone. If you look at the chess, you know, the global chessboard, Africa is the grand prize, and this is not an an overstatement. Africa is the grand prize or the ultimate prize. So they cannot focus on Afghanistan and leave Russia, which is coming into Africa to help Africa in a certain way, and China, which is also in Africa. So, but I will come to that in a short while. Now, the coming to Africa is for raw materials, okay? Why? Because if China helps Africa and Russia, they are working together to help Africa, Africa will industrialize. Now, when Africa industrializes, guys, can you hear me? I would like to know if you are hearing. Hello, guys, can you hear me?
Sorry, we're hearing you well. We're hearing you well. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Just at the same time, is it possible just a tiny bit slower, please?
Okay, I'll try, but because of the interest of time, that is why I'm trying to.
Yeah, because I want to hear every word.
Okay, I don't
Mr.
want
Gonza,
to have.
Brother Gonza, we're here, so you just carry on and go slowly, and we're all listening. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So now what we are seeing is that there is a pivot from Afghanistan to come and fight against Russia and China. Now there's a whole lot of things which are around this war in Ukraine and this struggle against China and Russia. So it is not like we have been discussing this issue in the consensusism class because we are trying to reach a consensus on what is the reason of this war in Ukraine. But history, the present and the future, these things are all tied. So it is not one aspect of looking. There's no one way of looking at this thing and say that this is the reason why the Western world has shifted its war towards Ukraine. Okay, because if you look at how they are fighting, how they are pouring weapons into Ukraine, it looks like this is a matter of life and death. And if as I have mentioned, if I'm right as I've mentioned about these economic depressions and how they have been happening, if you look at the figures, for example, of last year, all the European economies, they were contracting starting 2020. If you go and pull out the figures, they were contracting, while Africa and the East, China and East Asia and all these countries and India, they are going up. Their figures are going up. Their economic figures are going up. America and all Europe, they were contracting. Whether you're talking of Germany, France, all the economics were, contract. So this is a matter of life and death. Now, if Africa is helped in any way by China and Russia to industrialize, there is two things that will happen here. The Western world will lose access to raw materials. One, now if it at least it had the raw materials, but it had the market, that would be another thing. But it would lose access to raw materials because those materials will be used in industries in Africa. Two, they would lose the market, for their producing goods. I saw yesterday a memo which was written in 2019. Ursula, I think she's called the president of the European Union Commission, Ursula von something. She's called Ursula von something. She was directing one of her subordinates that the person should pay close attention, should make the study of the African Continental Free Trade Area a priority and see that their long-term strategy of having a continent-to-continent trade with Africa is achieved. So she spoke about to trade with the United States and China and Asia to revise all those. But she said that I want you to give extra priority to Africa. And, as a European Union, she was speaking as the president of the European Union. I want you to give extra attention and priority to the African Union and its Africa Continental Free Trade Area, because our long-term strategy is for us to establish a continent-to-continent trade. So they want to take advantage of this Africa Continental Free Trade Area, of the African continent and the African market, because the African market is expanding now. Okay, so we have a lot of consumers. So these raw materials, if they allow us to use them, now their industries will not have market to sell, and they will not have the raw materials themselves. So this can't be allowed. Just yesterday, even today, I saw a memo and a protestation letter from the Zambian opposition. They were resisting the establishment of they call it AFRICOM, AFRICOM of the United States, Africa Command of the United States. They are saying that they are going to establish the headquarters of AFRICOM, Africa Command of the United States in Zambia. The president has invited them there. So the opposition was protesting against it. And I saw a tweet also today that this has been, talked about by the United States. It is confirming, the United States is confirming that they are establishing the Africa Command. So you ask why all this? Why is the United States bringing the Africa Command, which is in Germany, bringing it close, to the south of the continent? They already have in the north, Camp Lamoa, where they have the biggest, military base. So now they are trying to cover in the south and try to monitor the activities of China in all this way. So they are looking at the raw materials and the market as a priority, a market for their finished goods. And these things, they were already mentioned by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah in all his works. These things, these are themes. These are some of the themes in Nkrumah's works, which are recurring: raw materials and the market, raw materials and a market for their finished goods. So when you take away these from them, it's like a double-edged sword on their throat, and they are going to fight to their death. So if you see events in Ukraine going the way they are going, it is no accident that they have to fight to death, because there is a long-term goal, but which we are not seeing here. So they will be talking about Russia, attack on Ukraine, and all this. But if you ask, they did provoke Russia, because according to 1989 agreements, which they signed with the Soviet Union before its collapse, and when it was collapsing, they said they will not extend it to Russia. They will not, pull Russia's neighbors, who were most of them part of the Soviet Union, into NATO. And they have gone ahead to do this. So they have continued to go to Russia's side. So Russia, from an African perspective, is justified. And that has been the sentiment of many Africans if you go all around the continent and in the diaspora. So those are the two major reasons I can see of fighting against Russia and China, of the Western world fighting against Russia and China, which is going on today. The other thing is to prevent any protection for Africa. When you look at what happened in Mali in 2000, that there was a coup, and the leadership there was changed to some young people who are, pro-Africa. They saw that it would be dangerous for them to live without some guarantees for security, because they knew that France would continue to agitate within and overthrow their government. So they reached out to Russia. Russia gave them security through the famous Wagner Group, which we have been hearing all, this long. Other people have been criticizing it. Other people have been, appreciating what it has done there. But all these are tied together. So this is security for Africa, or for some progressive governments in Africa. And the United States doesn't like this. It doesn't like anyone who gives Africa security. It wants to treat Africa like a farm. Okay, so the Western world wants to treat Africa like its farm. It goes there, uproots the goods or the plants, and goes home and cooks them, and then brings it back and gives the, it sells it to the same place where it has uprooted. So it is a farm for them. So anyone who comes to develop that farm in a certain way and to help the owners of the farm to develop it is an enemy of the Western world. And this is where they talk about their interests, that the Western interests. So what they are talking about is that we want to continue the exploitation and the colonialism and the domination. These are the interests, the Western interests, which they are talking about, if I may be more precise. Now, we want to look at China. We want to say, we want to look at China, alone without Russia. So we will talk about Russia, as we are going on, but we want to look at China. Why are we saying that the focus is on China? They want to, although they are fighting in Ukraine and they are trying to show that they are fighting Russia, why are we saying that they are fighting? This war is against China. They are fighting against China, but they are fighting for Africa. The fight is for Africa, but they are fighting against China, and they want to weaken Russia before they can defeat China, which is going to be very hard. It is not something which is going to be easy. The fact that they are imperialists, it doesn't mean that they are going to achieve all these objectives which they have laid out. From the past, they have been, destroying countries and going about, bombing here and taking over. Like we have seen, what they did in Syria, that Russia was in there to prevent them. So they were not able to achieve the whole objective of conquering, Libya and overthrowing the regime there of President Bashar al-Assad, of Syria. So they were not able to achieve that. Now, China was admitted into the World Trade Organization in 2011. If you look at 2001, if you look at 2001, that is the same year when the attack in the United States happened. That is 9/11. I'm talking about 9/11. So while they were, distracted with 9/11, China was being admitted into, the World Trade Organization. And this is after a lot of lobbying, which was done actually in the past by Bill Clinton himself and other Western leaders, that they wanted to integrate China into the World Trade Organization and change. Probably this one would have helped them to change the governance system in China and how China is being run. But China did not buy into that. So China came into the World Trade Organization and took advantage of the economic benefits, but it was not able to change its system politically. So China today is at 18 trillion, in GDP per capita, okay? GDP per capita, and the United States is at 23 trillion GDP. So after the admission into the World Trade Organization, China became the biggest trader in the world, okay? Because it has a lot of manufacturing capacity. But if you look at the figures by 2020, by the year 2020, actually the Chinese economy had surpassed the United States economy. When you are talking about PPP, the Chinese economy right now is bigger than the United States economy. And this is part of the anxiety that has developed in the Western world. Now, that is China. So I've provided also the link to the source of this information. Anyone who is interested can follow through and go and read from the presentation which I've provided on our platform. Those ones who want it can still ask on our platform. This is the Concisism. This platform belongs to the Concisism class, those ones who are new. And so you can provide your phone number and then we can add you on the Concisism class. Thank you very much. So I'll continue and go forward. Now, China's trade, we want to look at China's trade with Africa, because now what we are trying to do is we are trying to connect the dots. We are trying to connect it because, like I said, everything is interconnected. It is very naive to think that the world is not connected, or to do certain things and think that they are not interconnected, to think that history, the present and the future are not connected. Like I said in the beginning, when we are living now, we are molding what is going to be called history. Those people who are going to be there in the future, they are going to call what we are doing today, they are going to call it history. So it is naive for us to think that history has happened in the past. whether you're talking about 400 years ago or 5,000 years ago, doesn't affect us today. It affects us today, and we have to understand that. So we want to see how China is behaving in Africa, how Russia is behaving in Africa, and how are these, a stumbling block to the Western world and its ambitions. So China's trade with Africa, according to 2021, it had reached around $253 billion. That is China's trade with Africa, according to 2021. That is last year. Now we want to look at the United States. The United States trade with Africa. According to their website, which I've provided here, the website is census.government, which is the United States is responsible for census and statistics in the United States. They say that in 2021, their trade with Africa was around 63 billions. If you're looking at exports here and imports from Africa and into Africa, is 63 billions. And mind you, we're talking about an economy of the United States which is around $23 billion. And a country, the United States, which has had contact with Africa for a very long time, ever since it started taking slaves, you can say more than 300 years. China, this trade of 253 billion in China, or between China and Africa, has been built up in a period of 30 years. Okay, this trade has been built up in a period of 30 years of Chinese trade with Africa. So a contact and trade with Africa. For the United States, like I said, is 63 billions, and that 63 billions, more than 300 years. Now, when we go to Europe, what of Europe? Europe's figures, which I also pulled from ec.europa.eu, which is a website for concerned with statistics in the European Union. Europe says, according to their website, that Europe's trade with Africa is around 260 billion. Okay, 260 billion euros, approximately, because the euro and the United States dollar, they are not very much different. Approximately, it could be around $270 billion. So we decided to take that figure. Now, when we sum up those two figures, 63 billion and around 270 billions, we decided to reach at a figure of around $350 billion. Okay, so $350 billion between Africa and the Western world in a period of 400 years versus China, 253 in a period of 30 years. From an African perspective and using Pan-African projections, we estimated that even though China is being demonized, that it is doing unfair trade with Africa, which we agree with to a certain extent. And or if you visit all Pan-Africans or Africans who wish Africa well, they would agree that we need a critical conversation. Somebody said that we need a critical conversation with China, on our relationship and what is going on. But then with all this that we need to examine, we need more to examine our relationship, much more critically, our relationship with the Western world, which is, this is a scenario that is not, this is a situation that is not put out there in light much more as desired. And a lot of focus in the past has been put on China, how China is exploiting Africa. Now, when we look at the Pan-African projections, or if you look at projections, estimates from an African perspective, if the Western world was treating Africa the same way as China was, and ramping up its trade relations with Africa in the same way like China, which China they are calling bad. Our trade figures with the Western world should be around $4.5 trillion. That's the figures between the West and Africa. It should be $4.5 trillion. But those figures today, after 400 years, they are $350 billion. Those figures after 400 years should be 4.5 trillion, looking at the time, because China in 30 years has done 253 billion. The Western world in 400 years has done $350 billion. 400 years of contact since the 16th century. With China, that's the figure I gave. Now, that's the comparison right there. Now, we want to look at more on the causes of the pivot. So I pointed out this comparison. Let me go back a little bit. I pointed out this comparison to show you why the Western world is so concerned about the activities of China and Russia in the in Africa. Why the Western world is very concerned is because China may be doing something right that they have not been doing for the last 400 years. And instead of correcting those mistakes, they turn it into, this shame into aggression, instead of going back to correct their mistakes and say, we have to approach our relationship with Africa in a different light. They turn it into aggression and anger and aggression and uncontrollable deception and all evils surrounding this kind of reaction. Now we want to look at more reasons why China is being looked at as a serious threat to the Western world. China's contribution also in Africa, when you are talking about infrastructure in the last 30 years, outstrips the Western world. When you look at their 400 years of presence in Africa, in 30 years, in just 30 years, when you look at the infrastructure China has been, building in Africa or helping Africa, working with Africa to build, it outstrips the infrastructure which the Europeans and their allies and the whole Western world has done in the last 400 years. I remember one time the company which I have been working for is a Western companies from the United States. One guy who's a white came to the town where I'm staying, which is Tamale in the northern part of the country of Ghana. And he looked at the stadium which was built in Tamale, in the town where I'm staying in Ghana. He said that was this stadium, wow, this stadium. So he was so amazed by the stadium, so he was amazed to the point like he didn't expect that Africans should have such and such an infrastructure, such an area which is looked at as almost a rural area should have such infrastructure. So he was like, wow, this infrastructure, he's amazed, like he's not supposed to find this type of infrastructure in Africa. So this is how they look at Africa. Now, I spoke also about Russia. Russia also moved into Africa. I'm still talking about the causes of the imperialist pivot towards the South China Sea. Russia moved into Syria after Western attack on Libya to prevent the overthrow of Syria's government. And it has been successful so far. Like I mentioned, they prevented the overthrow of the government in Syria of Bashar al-Assad. Now, Russia has also gone on to enter the Sahel in countries like Mali. You remember it also offered help to Burkina Faso, and it was saying that if they want, they can come and also help them to beef up their security. And even countries like Guinea, Russia was offering help. So this is being looked at as a problem, offering security to Africa, capabilities to Africa. So that means they will not have, a window to pass through or a door to pass through for them to exploit. many people in places like Mali, for example, we are very tired of France. By the time France left there, people are very tired because people have been killed. I read an article which I can't pull out right now. France killed more, the French military killed more than 3,000 people, in Mali, with claims of fighting terrorism. And if you follow closely, it is actually France which has been arming the terrorists there. And France also contributed to these terrorists by attacking Libya, because before attacking Libya, we didn't have this chaos of terrorists who ran all the way from the Middle East and entered Libya and with weapons, and then they have gone all the way to the Sahel. You have had attacks in Burkina Faso. Now, all these terrorists, you have had them there all the way to southeastern Africa, in Mogadishu, in Mogadishu, Mozambique. You see, so this is the work of Western imperialists. Now they are establishing a military base in Zambia, which they are going to claim that they are going to fight terrorists closer here in Mozambique. That is the justification. But we know, you and me know, that the justification is a false justification. The real reason is to keep China and Russia out of Africa so that they can retain the African resources, raw materials, and the markets. So therefore, they see Russia and China as a threat to this ambition. Okay? They see Russia and China as a threat because in some way, whether you like it or not, China and Russia, they have helped Africa in a certain way. Now, to remove China, has become very powerful. For you to remove China, which has become very powerful, you have to remove Russia. Russia's military capabilities. For you to remove, to stop China in Africa, you have to weaken Russia, because Russia, when you're talking about military capabilities, Russia has more advanced military technology compared to China. But then China has more economic capabilities. And China, in the past period, if you check, about last week, China announced that they are going to continue their coordination with Russia. So the Western world has tried on many, many occasions to separate Russia and China. And if you look at political analysts or world international world relations analysts, like there's a gentleman called Mashaima, who delivered a lecture on why Ukraine is the West's fault, which is on YouTube. It has racked up about 25 million views. If you check out, it's called Professor Mashaima. He was giving this lecture way back in 2014 that Ukraine is the West's fault, and all those things have come to reality right now, and a lot of people have run to go out and watch this lecture which he gave. Now, this shows us that for you to remove to defeat Russia, you have to first defeat Russian military capabilities, because Russia is going to help China. China came out to say, we are going to continue our coordination. So they decided, now they tried very much to separate China and Russia. So if you look at the news articles that have been written in the month starting February this year up to around March, they published a lot of articles which were showing that China has said it is not going to help Russia. China has distanced itself from helping Russia. So all those kind of articles appeared, and also they tried to use the threats against China. And they said China, if it tries to help Russia in any certain way materially,
Very sorry. Can you unmute, Kwame? Mr. Gonza, please could you unmute?
Okay. I don't know who muted me.
It was probably me. I thought it was somebody else trying to come in. So sorry.
Okay, no problem. So if you look at what I was talking about, the articles that were published about China and Russia starting in February, they were trying to create a division between Russia and China, but they have failed also to achieve this objective, and Russia has continued to come closer to China. So they are coordinating. The Chinese understand this very well. They understand that the attack on Russia is an attack on them. They are aiming at them. Because while they are attacking in Ukraine and they are pouring weapons into Ukraine, Ukraine doesn't have the capabilities to fight against Russia. We all know that. But Russia right now is fighting against the whole Western world in Ukraine. So Ukraine, they are just using it as a sacrificial arm. So all the intelligence that they are using in the war in Ukraine is Western intelligence. Advisors are already in Ukraine. Military advisors from the West, they are showing them how to fight weapons, how to use different types of weapons. So while they are pouring in weapons, they are saying China should not help Russia. So which is unrealistic. While you are pouring in weapons into Ukraine and you are helping Ukraine, you are saying China should not help Russia, which is absolute arrogance, which cannot be accepted. So can you mute that person, please? So in summary, what they are fighting in Ukraine is China and Russia all together. And the Chinese know this very well. Just about a few days, like I said, China came out to declare that they are coordinating with Russia and will continue to do so. Russia has also strengthened its economic measures to counter the sanctions and its effects on its economy. So those who thought that they will impose these sanctions, actually they are the ones now who are grappling with the consequences of the sanctions. Russia backed its ruble currency with gold. Okay, so now it means to a certain extent that if you buy Russian oil or gas with the ruble, which Russia has demanded that they pay for its gas and oil in ruble. If you buy with ruble, that means to a certain level you are buying with gold. You are buying Russian, oil and gas with gold. It has helped, this pegging of the ruble, the Russian ruble, which is the Russian currency, to gold has helped it to reverse the inflation even to pre-war levels. Even, it is even doing much better. If you look at the ruble compared to the euro, it is even doing much better compared even to before the war happened in Ukraine when they imposed the sanctions. So some countries have already started paying for this gas and oil in rubles. About for them, if you look at an article came out in Bloomberg, that news came out a few days ago that about 4 countries have started paying for the gas in rubles. Okay, for the countries which refused to pay, like Poland and Bulgaria, their gas has been cut off by Gazprom, Russia's, one of Russia's major, oil companies, which is supplying Europe, EC gas. This refusal to pay in rubles, and consequently Russia cutting off the gas, to Poland and Bulgaria, led, when the news was announced, it led to the, devaluation, the decline in the value of the euro. If you look at the news a few days ago, about 2 or 3 days ago, the euro declined compared to the Russian currency, which is the ruble. So all this fighting is for access to Africa's resources by the West. They think that China and Russia are standing in their way. Africa's resources have helped to fuel they have helped to fuel China's rise and fuel the Western world's rise, whether you are talking of slavery or colonialism. The West's rise was fueled majorly by resources from Africa. The human resources during slavery, which provided the labor that led to the Industrial Revolution, you know, the accumulated capital. And when they accumulated this capital through the free labor, then they had the time to concentrate on research, you know, and discover things like machines and all other scientific instruments. All this was African labor. So this labor, which they accumulated and used to get capital during slavery, is the one which led to the period of the Industrial Revolution in Europe. And after the Industrial Revolution, using African labor, then African resource, which is labor, human resource, then it came colonialism. The colonialism, then they continued to use that cheap labor because there was the abolition of slavery around there with the help of Haiti. Haiti helped to stop this slavery when it won its independence. Then colonialism came and they shifted it to our material resources. And that has been the trend that has been going on up to now. Now, anyone who stands in their way to stop them from continuing this exploitation is an enemy, you know. So the other thing which I've looked at and thought about is that they may want to break up Russia also because they see Russia as too big, okay? Because before Africa is unified into a single state, Russia right now is the single biggest nation in the world. And also Russia has a lot of resources. It has a lot of resources. So even in my argument, I would say that they want access also to Russian resources, okay? They want access to Russian resources. Russia doesn't need Africa's resources. Russia has enough resources. The reason why Russia is in Africa, as you have seen, aside from the brainwashing that has been done by the imperialist and neocolonialist media houses, Russia has been very instrumental in helping the colonized countries to free themselves. You know, you can talk of the Soviet Union. It helped a lot of countries to free themselves. And this is history. These histories, they repeat themselves. So Russia has that DNA of helping them. And so they see Russia as a bad brother because it's their European brother and breaks away from them and comes to help other civilizations to free them from their domination. So they say they have to punish Russia. And that is why you see they celebrated very much when they humiliated Russia and broke up the Soviet Union. This is their brother who they look at as, you know, a brother who has gone astray. If you look at also the Berlin Conference, Russia was at the Berlin Conference in 1884 and 1885. But for some reasons, Russia did not, you know, take colonies in Africa. So the major goal, if you would ask me, of the war in Ukraine is the resources in Africa. Now, Africa's modern emancipation timeline. Now, here is a calendar which I drew up in 2020. I drew up in 2020. I was looking at the periods. If you look at history, if you look at people like Ray Dalio, who published, he's an investor. He published a book last year in November, and he's talking about history. If you want to understand what is going on today, study the last 500 years of history. Ray Dalio is worth around 20 billion, more than 20 billion. I think up to $25 billion. He's an investor. But his investment strategy is that he goes and studies history, and the history for the last 500 years will tell him which empire is coming on top. Right now, he's investing a lot in China, and it helps him to know where the markets are moving, the trends of the market, the world economy, where it is moving. So right now, he's betting a lot on China, and he has been very successful in the past. He has the biggest hedge fund in the world. his hedge fund, which is more than $160 billion, he's managing a lot of money. So I drew up, before I met him, I had contact with Ray Dalio and his philosophy. I actually had drew up myself a map after reading a couple of books. I read books like when you look at C.L.R. James, the Black Jacobins, when you read Africa Must Unite, and you look at the periods in which our people rose up to fight. When you look at, for example, the Haitian Revolution, the people rose up to fight in 1791, and they spent around 13 years fighting, and they were able to achieve independence. If you look at Haiti, they achieved its independence in 1804. It took a lot of, a period of 13 years. Now, if you come to the independence era also, they started fighting when Nkrumah came back to the Gold Coast in the year 1945. He came back to the Gold Coast in the year 1947, but the struggle in the Gold Coast had started by 1945. And that period when they achieved their independence also, it took 12 years because Nkrumah achieved independence in 1957. So 1945 to 1957, that's a period of 12 years. So what I'm looking at here, I'm trying to show you that history repeats itself, as they have said. This is scientific. This is practical. This is showing you that these things are real. So when they are talking about history, you have to pay close attention. Now, what are my projection? I came up with certain projections. When I look at the events surrounding 2020, the year 2020, I came up with projections. Starting the year 2020, if I add about 10 to 12 years, I projected that by the year 2033, if the Pan-Africanists do the right things, okay? If Pan-Africanists do the right things, Africa will start looking different by the year 2033. If we start organizing ourselves and forcefully move into the direction of decolonizing the continent, by year 2020, by the year 2033, we are going to achieve that objectives. Why? Because of the events that are going on around the world. Mind you, by the time I drew up this calendar in 2020, the Ukrainian conflict had not started. Please, can you mute that person, Maurice? So if we do the right things from now, 2020 going, we add another period of 10, 12 to 15 years, because normally when there is a shift, as you have had on news media, media outlets and different information outlets, that today there is something going on today, that there's a shift in power that is going on, the shift in system that is going on. So that is the same thing which happened in 1945. If you look at that period, in 1945, that period, there was a shift in power from Europe to the United States. The United States was gaining the status of a world power, and it was taking on the leadership. But that period was after the chaos of World War II. And if you go back also as far as 1791, that period also, there was a struggle between France and Britain. Haiti was seeing this. But also that struggle which was there came about, the struggle between France and Britain in 1791, which came about that period, was because the United States had gained independence in 1776. Okay, so Britain lost to the United States as a colony. All of you who have read history very well remember that the United States was a colony to Britain. So in 1776, the United States achieved its independence. So this affected Britain. So they started to have contestations between Britain and France, they want to take dominance over the world, the economic dominance, because Britain was dominating. So France wanted to overtake. So that was the struggle was there now. So that's the chaos. So there is certain events that surround every period, historical period, when there is a shift in power, when things are changing, power is shifting. And it takes a period of around, normally, those changes, they take a period of 10 to 15 years. Even Ray Dalio agrees with this. I was even very fortunate after discovering this, when I read Ray Dalio's book It was just a confirmation of what I had already looked at. So this transfer of power is happening even now. So it is only right for us as Africans to start doing the right things, to start putting our hands together, to start searching for the answers. The search for the answers is now. So in every generation, there is a challenge and there's a task to be accomplished. So in the independence generation, the task was to come up against the neocolonial structures and governments that period. They were the ones in control, they were the government. So they confronted them. So even today, we have the neocolonial governments. And as we have been studying in consensus, we have to confront them. We have to go ahead and confront these challenges because they are that is the duty of our time, is the task of our time, which we have to do. So now I would like to talk about Africa's future. Where should we be looking? What should we be looking at? What should we be working on? Because it is very important. I've now spoken about the past. I've spoken about the present in which we are and the forces, at contest right now, the forces at play right now. So now I want to talk about the future. Where do we want to go? Where should we go? What should Africa look like? What should the future Africa look like? Regardless of the challenges that are standing in our way, and what should we do and what are we doing so far? What have we done so far as Africans and the different Pan-African groups, at least the ones which I have been to? One of those things is I have observed is that the future of the continent is in the hands of the Pan-Africans, and they are the ones who are going to have to show the way. We have to craft a plan in urgency, looking at what I've spoken about, looking at what I've shown you, the forces at play today. Historically, the forces at play today, they point to something. So the Pan-Africans, we as Pan-Africans, have to urgently work on a single plan, and that plan has to be presented to the African people. And these African people and masses will help us to bring this plan to fruition. So these African people, I'm talking about, I'm not talking about all the 1.7 billion people who are African or around the continent, but we can choose out the critical determinant, which are called the critical determinant group. Okay, so out of this, the 1.7 billion people, it can be maybe we say we want to mobilize 5 million people. 5 million people will be enough, to transform the continent. If you have the power of these 5 million people to transform the continent. Okay, so you will not wait for 1.2 billion people on the continent or 1.7 billion people around the African continent. So we could mobilize on the continent and we mobilize in the diaspora. We have enough resources. We have so much resources today compared to what our ancestors had in 1791 when you're talking about the Haitian Revolution, and in 1945 when you're talking about the independence revolution, which was led by Dr. Kwame. They had so little resources compared to us, whether you're talking about money in its physical cash and businesses and all that. They didn't own much because the colonialists and the enslavers and the aggressors, they owned the land and the bodies during slavery. But imagine how did our people liberate themselves during slavery when they didn't even own their bodies, they didn't own even the land. And then when we come to colonialism, they didn't own, they owned their bodies, but they didn't own their land and the resources, and they didn't own much business. They were just a few people, a few bourgeoisie, a few African business people who had small businesses, but they were able to liberate themselves. And today here we are with means of communication. You can speak to 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 1 million people on a single platform, okay? Which they didn't have that time. They didn't have these means of communication which you have. Today we have many African people with businesses, many with jobs, sustainable jobs and all that. So we have so many resources, so much resources that there's no excuse for us not to transform our continent when you look at it realistically. So if we fail, it could be either negligence or laziness. That is my submission. So one of the things which I've come across is that there is a program or a plan called the Rapid Africa Plan. And this Rapid Africa Plan, I looked at it with the architect of this Rapid Africa Plan. Now, when I looked at it, as I've been around many Pan-African organizations, I realized that there is something missing in this plan. Now, what is first of all, before I tell you what is missing in this plan, this is an excellent plan because it redefines Nkrumah's vision of transforming Africa. Now, the African plan, the Rapid Africa Plan tells us that we can transform this continent within a period of 20 to 30 years to a leading GDP of $60 trillion. Okay, if you look at the GDP of Africa today and use it as a base, Africa today has a GDP of around 3.4 trillion. If you use that as capital, and then you look at the labor which we have in Africa, we have more than and in the diaspora, you have more than 70% literacy rate. So this is enough. And then we have the youngest population, and in the ground, if you add all our resources, like I said in the beginning, in my submission, that when you look at countries like the Congo, they have only the Congo, $38 trillion of resources in ground. And if you look at like Zimbabwe, around $18 trillion of resources in ground. So all together, these are just two countries which I've spoken, about. All together, the African continent, when you look at it and you take stock, the resources in ground, it goes up to $700 trillion. $700 trillion. Imagine that. Think about that. So in 30 years, you can be able to transform Africa, okay, to a GDP of 60 trillion. Or in the next 20 years, you can transform Africa to a GDP of 50 trillion. It is very, very possible because you have everything. Now, what is missing? What is missing is the organization. What is missing is the organization of these material resources which we have, the human resources which we already have that is already educated to the point where we want, and then the capital which we have, the $3.4 trillion which we already have also. So that is where the Rapid Africa Plan comes in. That the Rapid Africa Plan wants to organize these resources, but the Rapid Africa Plan cannot organize these resources without the support of its people. Because we understand that the power is in the people. So we have to push through the Rapid Africa Plan with other people. Now, that is where we came up and we said that we want to continue to enrich the Rapid Africa Plan where it is missing. So one of those things is that the ideological part was missing in, because the architect of the Rapid Africa Plan is not very ideological. So for you to build a new Africa, definitely it has to have that ideological aspect. What systems are we going to employ? What economic, social systems, political, economic systems are we going to employ? So this is where the ideological part comes in, and it has to be put together with the Rapid Africa Plan. And this is where I see that philosophical consensus comes in, so that it can help the Rapid Africa Plan to define itself. And then the other thing is we need to couple the Rapid Africa Plan with a means of finance. Right now, it is a plan that when you present it to the African people, they will be excited about it. But we want to make it appealing right now to the heads of state, of nations. I want you to pay close attention to this, of nations which are progressive in their nature. So you can talk of nations like Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, those nations which you can marry, or maybe even Uganda, nations which have consolidated their security, that they cannot be infiltrated or taken over by neocolonialism. If you look at Zimbabwe, for a very long time, it has proved that it has consolidated its security within and has been able to protect itself from imperialism. So these are the nations I'm talking about. So for us to be able to present the Rapid Africa plan, we have to couple it with a means of finance, so that even though this plan is for the continent as a whole, we can start implementing it in the individual African nations. One of the things we tried even to do is that a few months ago, we tried to merge this plan with other means of finance from other plans. For example, like there's a program which was crafted by a gentleman called Mr. Rosenthal. He came up with the idea of a bullion bank of Africa. It is a means of raising finance. So we wanted to combine this actually, and we had a program of going into Mali last year to present this program to the government in Mali. But we met certain obstacles which stood in our way, and we were not able to move forward with this program. So that is the Rapid Africa Plan. Now here I'm talking about the future and where we should go as African people. Now, also this plan, the Rapid Africa Plan, we wanted to look at it, apart from rapidly transforming Africa, we wanted to look at it as an alternative to all the Western and Eastern plans that are being presented to African governments. Like I said, if a government, like there's a coup d'etat, for example, like in Guinea, and a government shows interest in African people, shows progression towards African ideals, then we go in and present this our plan. So that was the purpose, that we present an alternative plan to the West and what it is presenting. Like Europe, they normally come into these governments and present certain plans. China also will come in, India, to present their plans, how they want to help them to transform. So Africa, or Pan-Africanism, also should be able to come in with the Rapid Africa Plan. So that is why the Rapid Africa Plan is very important. So the other thing which we are working on, which I would urge all the other Pan-Africanists to jump on, is that we have been now going around with petitions. These petitions, their purpose is to use them to mobilize the African people. Now, these petitions have been endorsed by the PLO Lumumba Foundation. Another gentleman is Dr. Edmond Folfak, who's an oncologist at Ohio State University, University, a medical hospital, and also Pan-African Daily TV, and Dr. Susan. They have all, they have endorsed these petitions. These petitions Stop the Wars in Africa. That is one of the petitions. It is available on Google, even if you Google it. But still, I say that anyone who wants it and wants to share them can find them on our main platform. And those who don't belong to the consensus class can still drop their number in the chat room, and then we'll send them this presentation. But the presentation is already available on our platform, the consensus class. Now, the other petition is a single currency. The demand, we want to create momentum through the demand for a single currency and a passport for Africa. And we think that every African should have a single passport, and Africa should have a single currency. So the African people, if we mobilize them around this, if we mobilize them around stopping the war, and they come out in numbers, if we mobilize them around the third petition, which is unifying Africa under a single state, and the African people, if they are able to buy into this, we believe that from now, this year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, until around maybe 10 years going forward, we will have created momentum which will be able to create the the pressure that we want to use to bring about the new system that we want to use to transform our continent. So these petitions are very important. Like I said, we are looking for 1 million for each of the petitions so that we can use these to pressure the African Union and the various African heads of state. Once we achieve the 1 million for each of the petitions, we will go around the continent to each of the African heads of state and make our case. And then even go to the African Union and make our case. So the faster we finish with this job, the faster we achieve these, these signatures on these petitions, the faster the better. But we are also coming up with many more other things that we are working on. Like today, with the Kwame Nkrumah Adiliko Institute, I was working with them. We want to issue a letter which will be presented to the various heads of state around the continent and regional bodies, urging them to, to call an urgent summit on the security situation in Africa because of the events that are going on around the world, and also the various military bases that have been dotted around, which are foreign, the various foreign military bases that are dotted around the continent. Like I said in the beginning, the United States just yesterday is preparing to establish the headquarters of Africa Command, which has been in Germany, is preparing to bring that headquarters into Zambia, and has been provided that space. So one thing I want to say is that through this action, every action which Nkrumah called positive action matters and counts. And he said that we need a vanguard party for us to be able to overthrow neocolonialism. So I believe that a vanguard party will be formed or will be consolidated as we go forward, because these are things which are not hard to form. Once you have created momentum and you have mobilized the people and brought about a new consciousness. So every little effort and every little thing you do to the whole cause of African liberation counts. Do not be lied that that it doesn't count. Whether you are signing a petition, whether you are sharing that petition with the 2 or 1 of your favorite contacts in your phone, and you're sharing that petition, these things count. You have seen that just webinars on the internet, they stopped the United States, and demonstrations, and conversations, even conversations, they stopped the United States attack on Ethiopia because the Ethiopians came out and the other African people came out to warn the United States and say if it dare tries to go into Ethiopia, all the African people will rise up and go and fight Ethiopia. So these things, they are always monitoring them. So they always take the heat to understand the consciousness of the people. So once we talk like this, we can have a webinar like this one, we have a seminar like this one, 11 people, but you will find that something like this can go out there and cause a big change, a big difference. So this is what happens with every little effort which we carry out. So with that being said, I would like to thank you for today. And I would like to say that Africa must unite now. Thank you very much all for giving me the opportunity to present these thoughts to you. Thank you very much. So I'm open for questions.
Well, let me, I'm about to hand the chair back over to Brother Kwame, but let me thank you for what you've said today. And I have so many questions, which is why I'm handing over the chair.
No,
other people ask questions, but can we all unmute for 1 minute and thank Brother Gonza with a clap, please? Thank you.
Outstanding analysis. Outstanding analysis.
It's lovely. Brother Kwame, I'm handing back to you so that I can also ask questions. Let me see who's first. Oh, it sounds like you, Michael.
Thanks
if you want to answer
yes, there's a question for Mr. Gonza. We're talking about Africa must unite, but you haven't mentioned a political structure that we could actually unite upon, you see. And I was suggesting, and something that you've not mentioned tonight, is federalism. Do you think that is a political structure that we could use and adapt to the particular circumstance of the continent for our advantage? Or do you not think that's appropriate?
Okay. Thank you. I think let me take one by one question so that they don't accumulate out there, then I'll forget. So if you are talking about a political structure, of course, that is one of the first things that must be achieved before we are talking about reconstruction. Because one of the things in Nkrumah's analysis he said is that you get power, you must get power. When you get power, you consolidate that power. Okay. When he was talking about the reconstruction of Africa, he said he achieved independence. Okay. When you achieve the independence, consolidate that independence through African unity. African unity was supposed to provide a means. Please, can you mute the person? So African independence was supposed to be consolidated through African unity. What is the use of consolidation? Consolidation means you close the door for interference for the enemies. So the political structure definitely is needed. So Nkrumah said, get independence, consolidate independence through unity, African unity, start the reconstruction process after consolidating the independence. So the political structure is very important. Now he talks about the vanguard party also in philosophical consensus that people have to be mobilized through a mass party, like to defeat colonialism. Like they mobilized the CPP, in the Gold Coast, and they were able to achieve that independence. And then he spoke about the importance of education and all that. So these efforts which we are trying to do right now, the efforts we are engaged in right now, we are at the stage of creating the vanguard party. So the questions now have risen. What you are seeing right now, that there's this content around the continent, whether you're talking about Nigeria, the SARS which happened in Nigeria, whether you're talking about the discontent, happening in Uganda, that some people are discontented with, with Museveni, but then the neocolonialists want to take advantage and bring Bobby Wine and continue the domination. So all these contents, they point to something that is something new that is supposed to be birthed out of the continent. Okay, so the discontent in Ghana, for example, that is going on, the young people are asking for a new constitution in the country. So all these are showing that the last period of 60 years, for the last period of 60 years, there has not been delivery. So for us to bring a new system, we need that vanguard party. And those are the forces you see that are coming together right now. So these are questions now. People are asking questions. They're asking for answers. And
my question is, do you think federalism is the political solution? You haven't answered my question.
I'm coming, please. So you spoke about a political party. So I want to first answer the issue of coming political union. So definitely, I'm saying that we have to have a political union, a political government. So now the nature of that political union, whether it is a federal government as suggested by Chika Anta Diop, suggested, a federal government of African states. That is according to his outlook, and that is what he was fighting for. But Nkrumah, on the other side, also was looking, from a different lens. He was looking at it from a different lens. So that will be determined by the experts. So we cannot answer all questions here. So for me, I'm not an expert on governance. Okay, so my work is to see that I mobilize the forces which will be able to craft these new systems. To craft whether it's new economic systems, because I'm not an economist, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm passionate about a new Africa. So I'm a revolutionary, and maybe you can say I'm a visionary. A visionary doesn't do all the work. Nkrumah was not the one who was responsible for all the ministries, even though he was the leader and he had some knowledge, but he had special people who were experts. For example, if you go to economic policies, the first development plan in the Gold Coast was done by Arthur Lewis, who was from the Caribbean. Okay, so he was an expert on economics. So that is what happens. But Nkrumah was a visionary, was a revolutionary. So that is the class, in which you can put me in. But those people who are going to do those things are already there. What is lacking now is the organization of those people. That is what is lacking. So I mentioned that Africa's literacy rate right now is around 70%, more than 70%. So on the continent and outside in the diaspora. So you can be sure that the people are there. We have them, we have numerous universities around the continent, and then we have more educated people, across and, all around the world who are African. So you can be concrete sure that you have all you need. What you are lacking is the organization of resources. So the person who will determine, the people who will determine which type of governance that is going to be instituted in Africa, and that type of governance which will be just and deliver the goods to all people on the continent, you can rest be assured that those people are there who are going to determine that. Thank you. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you. You have answered my question. Thank
you. Okay, Sister Ida, you said you had a question, yeah?
So, thank you. I'm glad you're taking over. Wonderful.
You didn't want to share anymore.
No, because I want to ask some questions. So
there's no rule that says that chairs can.
I know. Well, I was about to give it to Brother Ellen, but now you've invited me, I will. Brother Gonza, I loved your presentation, but there was so much in it. There was too much in it. And I feel that I also love your map, and I love the colors. And I think that we need more information via not necessarily pictures, but via things that we can see and attach our minds to. So, for instance, one of my things would be suggestions to you would be, out of your map that you did, north, south, east, west, all the rest, maybe we could have some more meetings like this, which cover different aspects in the north, the south, the east, and the west, would be a suggestion that I'd like to say. I'd also like to say that I think you need to be, I know you sent us the PDF, but I think we need more bite-sized pieces that we can chew on. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it is the PowerPoint.
Yeah, Brother Patrick,
could I quickly?
So Ida, was that a comment? Ida, was that just a comment?
It was a comment. I'd love to hear what you think about it.
Can you hold on, please? Sister Ida.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. It sounds like a suggestion rather than a question.
It was a suggestion, but it's also a question in that, could we have more?
Is that, do you want more on Fridays or what, or on Thursdays when we do our class?
No, maybe on Fridays where we open it to other people to come and listen, because I think it's there. There's so much, but there's just too much that you can get in one. But I think you've started it, and I'd love to hear more of it, but in smaller pieces. And also I'd like to see, I'm sorry, I'm very much a pictorial person, and I know that isn't considered academic necessary, but I think it's what people see and latch onto. So thank you.
Okay. Can I respond? Just so you know,
yes, please, please.
Sister Ida, just so you know, the pictorial is also academic.
Okay.
Very, very, very academic. So thank you very much. I'm sure that Brother Gonza will take up your suggestion. The other thing is, which you've raised, is whether we can have these meetings on Fridays, and that there is the question. Are you, Sister Ida, prepared to chair Friday meetings with myself or with Mr. Bourne?
I'm prepared to help by all means. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. That's right. And then the other thing also is whether Mr. Gonza will be happy to, at least for the foreseeable future, share on Fridays, because like you said, what he shared is so vital. It's so on point. And there's so much in there, it's very rich, and bringing them down into chunks will really help us to absorb it. Okay. Mr. Gonza, you want to make some comments before I bring in Brother Elam?
Yes,
No,
yes.
I just wanted to say, suggest something, please.
Yeah, Patrick, can you just hold on? Let him respond to Sister Ida, and then I'll come to you.
Yeah, I think Sister Ida, we can see how we can break it down, like Professor Kwame said, and then we will see as much as possible to include those pictorials, which make things easier to understand. Yeah, I had to put it together because I wanted to show how these things are interconnected. These scenarios are interconnected. These events, how they are interconnected. So I had to put all this information together so that you can be able to create a picture, so that you can be able to see how everything is interconnected, so that you can be able to understand where we are today. So that was the purpose. But we can go ahead and break it down slowly, one by one, after certain periods, and then we'll be able to arrive at the end where you want, so that you can be able to connect all that picture together. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brother Elam, can you hold on, please? I'll let Brother Patrick speak first, and I'll come to you. Brother Patrick?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that with the Thursday classes, I am aware I'm catered for. But since Sister Ida was the chair, which is okay, she suggested a show of hands. Well, please remember that I can't use that facility. So please consider me somehow when I can get an opportunity to say something.
A point of principle.
Yeah.
Yes, point of principle.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's
Whenever
right. So,
you can fit me in, but yes, please.
So, Sister, yeah, brother Patrick, you can't raise point of principle at any point, yeah?
Yes. Okay. Thanks.
I know you've asked for us to explain what that means, which we will. Okay. Was that all, Brother Patrick?
No, I have something to say, but I'm okay when I get when I'm given a turn, no problem.
Okay. Brother Elam, you can come in now.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Kwame. I would want to.
I'm not a professor. Is Professor? Maybe you are talking to Professor Kwame. Okay. That's
Yes.
fine. So we are
Yes, I was because it's the one who allowed me in.
Okay.
Yes. So Gonza, I was saying that I really loved your presentation, and I'm very thankful for the great work you've done. And the projections you've made, I think it gives us hope. And I want to thank you for that at first. And apparently, I would want to also emphasize on the fact that you've tried projecting on the GDP growth in the continent. And I really love that. Yeah, I think it's kind of like it's sincere to us right now that as if there's need for us to be capitalist, much as yes, it seems like as if now we need to become more capitalist than socialists, or like let me say the scientific socialism that
Could somebody go on
Dr.
mute, please? Could somebody go on mute, please? You're interrupting the speaker.
Yeah, very sorry.
Continue, speaker.
All right, so I was saying that just like then Dr. Kwame Nkrumah left us with the scientific socialism, I think Gonza is trying to give us an analysis that has to make us think as capitalists, much as it might also create other issues. But I think that's now the only issue that we need to now try to put into context. Is it like we should become capitalists in this aspect, or we maintain the scientific socialism that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah left us with in his propositions and his writings? And also, apparently, I had written something in the comment section where I said that.
Brother Elam, hold on.
Yes.
Hold on. You would like him to answer that question before you carry on. Let him answer that question, and then you can ask another question. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Otherwise, you will overload him. Yeah, brother, Mr. Gonza, can you answer that question? Are you
Okay.
calling for a capitalist Africa or a scientific socialist Africa?
Okay. Yeah. So the question of whether capitalism, so that is the issue of ideology. So whether capitalism or socialism, that is where I told you that when I came across the Rapid Africa Plan, I noticed that there was something missing. And that is where I said that philosophical consensus came in. Okay. So philosophical consensus, when it comes, is supposed to enrich this Rapid Africa Plan and give it an identity. So that is where the system we are going to practice politically and economically is going to be determined. So, and you had me say also that I am not an expert on governance. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an economist, but I'm a visionary. So the work of the visionary is to find the people who are going to do that work of determining what is the justice system. Okay, if we agree that capitalism has been exploitative to us, to our people, or it has been beneficial, or socialism has been exploitative, it has not produced, okay, then we agree that this is the system, or we want to have a hybrid. Okay, China started with communism and socialism. They went to capitalism. Now they are going back to socialism. Okay, so the idea of being stuck in one place, that this is only one system which works, I think that is an outdated idea, that this is capitalism, this is socialism, is outdated. So we have to be there and understand what is going to work for the African people, what is going to help us to transform our continent, but not have slums, and then we are not destroying the environment at the same time, So we have to do it quickly, but again, we don't want to destroy our environment. So we have to find a means, and we have experts who can do that job. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I think as I am here, I can partly answer Brother Elam's question, and then he can come in with his other question. Brother Elam, is it the Africa Plan, if it must cater for the needs of all Africans, and remember, it's not just Africans on the continent, but Africans in the diaspora, then it will have to be socialist in that sense. But in the current environment, well, since the end of the Cold War anyway, the word socialism and communism has in a way fallen into disrepute. So people are very wary to use it. So the CPP in Ghana, for instance, says our philosophy is Nkrumahism. They don't say socialism because of the the feelings around the word. But remember that capitalism and socialism are social political theories. Yeah, they do not constitute the entirety of how society is governed or run. So they are social political theories that tell us how we should exploit the earth, how we should organize production, and so on. The essence of capitalism is that a few individuals must own all the means of production, and the rest of us must work as labor. That essentially is capitalism, which as Africans we reject. As Africans, I don't think fundamentally we as Africans, who are communalist by nature, by the way, I don't think we accept that somehow the river that runs in your village, Miss Ellen, for instance, must be owned by one individual, and then all of us must pay that one individual money in order to fetch water from that river. I don't think Africans will accept that. But again, to summarize, it all depends on how, as Mr. Gonza has presented it. It would all depend on how we package the information in order to mobilize the 5 million that he talked about. Because we are not going to unite the continent through force. We'll have to do it democratically, and that means we have to communicate our message to that minority that once they are on board, can create a stampede for the unification of the continent. So to summarize, yes, it will have to be scientific socialism, I'm afraid, not capitalism, because capitalism is where we are now. Since 1966, when Nkrumah was overthrown up till now, we've had capitalism. Has Africa developed? No, it hasn't. We've gone backwards. So there's no point holding on to the same thing, that is not delivering the goods for us. Thank you. So Brother Alem, your next question, please.
All right, thank you very much for that clarification. Right now we have regional blocks that are in existence. We talk of the East African community and the West African blocks also, and apparently other blocks around the continent. And also the AU itself, the AU that is existing right now. We realize that these are political organizations, and they show some level of unity, yes, but these organizations are constrained by financial issues. I give an example. Like I tried doing some research on the standard gauge railway that was supposed to be implemented in Uganda, but it has gained focus in Kenya and Tanzania, but it hasn't reached Uganda. So in understanding how the standard gauge railway was supposed to be maybe implemented or actualized by the China Exim Bank through its bridge and road initiatives, I realized that the East African community as a bloc couldn't even finance its own activities, but it gives just an agenda to these African states to do something, but they themselves even lack the money to run their activities. Again, depend on the Western world or the superpowers to finance some of their activities. And this now makes me question, are these political organizations just enough, or they should be harmonized with economical aspects, or like maybe trying to establish a very firm economic base, because I am seeing that yes, we can achieve the political independence, the political agenda for the continent, but just as colonialism was indeed an economic thing. Colonialism happened because of the economic depression in Europe, yes, but as it came, it had to now gain the political space. And in the political space, that's when it had to achieve this whole thing, but it was purely economic. That's why we say capitalism led to all these problems in Africa. So there's need for us to merge the two, the market and politics, because in this aspect, we are seeing that, yes, we can push for political independence or political unity, but at the same time, these are the political blocks or like organizations that lack fundings from these respective states to operate and do everything well. But here, these respective states have the money, but they tend to again bank their monies with these international banks,
Yes. Brother Alem, can I help you there? So your question, to summarize, is that political institutions on the African soil lack the means of financing the same institutions. So if we have a politically united Africa, can we finance it? And that's basically your question. Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Gonza, can you answer it, please?
Yeah. So one of the things thank you, Ellen, for that question. One of the things that Nkrumah actually argued for in his analysis, I consider Nkrumah the utmost authority on African unity and on Pan-Africanism when you're talking about the 21st century still, because there has not been any figure who has come up to stand against, to compete him, to outcompete him according to his analysis and then the solutions which he gave. But if you look at his analysis, he saw that the East African community, SADC, ECOWAS, all these groups are opening doors for neocolonialism to continue its domination. So he discouraged them. And this is where they had big agreements. I mean, they had big disagreements with Nyerere, because Nyerere was saying we should go slowly, let's build these regional bodies, and then later we'll merge them into a union government. Nkrumah was saying we should create a union government now. And mind you, Nyerere, when Tanzania was getting independence, it was not called Tanzania. There was Tanganyika, and then there was Zanzibar. Okay, so but when they were getting independence, for him, Nyerere saw it fit to immediately merge Zanzibar, to Tanganyika, so that he can create Tanzania. That is how they created Tanzania, because Tanzania right now, it was called Tanganyika, the mainland, and the island, which is Zanzibar. It was just Zanzibar, so they merged them together. So he saw it that Nyerere saw it that if he leaves Zanzibar, to get its own independence, it will be difficult for him to unify it with the mainland and then create one country. So he did it immediately. He ran after it. So I see it in part as contradictory for him, again, to say that we should go gradually on African unity. And so this is what Nkrumah stood up against. And he warned the consequences of this regionalism is very clear. Nkrumah mentioned it, that they will not be able to marshal Africa's resources. The capital, for you to attract the capital, and that is what the Rapid Africa Plan is going to do, is that you have to look attractive. You have to look attractive because the capital is out there in the world. But for you to attract that capital, you have to look attractive. For example, how did China look attractive after all that capital had been accumulated? China had highly skilled labor. Okay, if you look at the United Nations, I think education, when you are talking about education literacy indexes in the 1980s, China was almost at the same level with the Western world, and then they had a big market, and these are the things which Nkrumah was talking about. So they have a market and they have a skilled labor. So that is what Nkrumah was saying about Africa, that let us unify. And then for us, we have a third advantage. We have the material resources. So what was only missing for us to be attractive so that we can attract all that capital to come to our countries, so that we use it. The capital is there, even now is there in Africa, but we are not using it according to our benefit, according to our conditions. Now the capital is coming in to exploit. What is called investment today is coming in to exploit the continent. But if we were unified, then we would create policies, because we are irresistible. Look at companies like Ford and General Motors, all those ones. They went to China because China was irresistible, extremely irresistible. The market was irresistible. And the country was organized and it was extremely irresistible. They could not resist, and they went in there. What happened when they went in there? China copied the technology. Okay, now it has it. It is overtaking them. So they wanted to make super profits. So when we organize our society, when we unify our continent, we put a brake on the flow of our resources. Now we are going to be attractive 3 times compared to China. And that is why we can be able to transform this continent, because the capital will be there, is there on the world market. All of them, they want to make profit and they want cheap labor. We have the labor. We have the youngest population in the world right now. Europe, the population is declining. All the people, the population is old. They are not giving birth. Russia, the population is declining. Even Putin, if you listen to some interview, was saying he's going to give, certain incentives for people to have many children. Africa has the youngest population. The population of the United States is going down. All these countries, if you listen to Tesla's CEO or the chief or technical officer, who was Elon Musk, he was saying that the population is going down, is going to go down. And yet you have smart people like Bill Gates going around saying that there's a lot of population. The population is going to go down if we continue to practice this thing called the family planning, which they are doing. So Africa is going to be in that position. Africa is going to have the youngest population. You have cheap labor. So they are going to be coming here. If we do not unify now and take advantage of these things which we have, now Africa is going to become again a supplier of labor. And you have seen this already, that the Middle East, they are taking people from Africa to go and work in their systems and their factories and everywhere. So it has already started. It's not that it's not happening. So we have three things which are our advantage that are going to be important. Even China itself is worried about its population that is going to decline. You see? So we have three things. We have the material resources, we have our population, and we have the market, and we have a young population. So these are actually four, compared even to China. And this population is educated. Okay, is educated. So we have all the advantages to attract the capital to come to the country. But we cannot do it if we don't unify the country. Unless we unify it, we cannot take advantage of this leverage which we have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're muted, Brother Kwame. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I was saying that the current regional institutions clearly are useless because they are not able to prevent the outflow of capital from Africa as we sit here and listen. So clearly,
they can't even attract the capital itself.
Precisely.
They cannot attract it.
So apart from the failure to be able to attract capital, they themselves are have not been able to stop the outflow of the capital. Around not less than 500 billion is being siphoned out of Africa. More than that, and these blocks have failed. Sister Theresa Umoja of Generational Wealth has her hand up. Can I suggest that she be the last person to ask a question? Everyone, because the time is 9:35.
You've forgotten Patrick.
Yeah, okay, Brother Patrick hasn't spoken. So can we say that 2 or 3 more people speak and then we bring the meeting to an end? Is that okay with everyone?
Professor, I had one last question.
You've asked 2 already. Can others speak, please? I hope you don't mind. Yeah, so please let's
put it in the chat. Put it in the chat, please.
Yeah, let's let Sister Teresa speak, and then Brother Patrick, and then maybe we'll come back to you. Okay. But the time is 9:35, so we have gone very far in time. All right, Sister Teresa.
Hi, Brother Kwame, and hi everyone. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
Good. So interesting. I liked your presentation. We worked in 2021. I worked personally extensively in the Rapid Africa Plan and brought in a financial engine to Professor Hannington and his team. I am a part of the team, and I'm so glad to hear you talk about the financial side, because the financial engine was the part that we came and showed. And I think at the time that maybe it was too early. Professor Hannington couldn't fully grasp it. So what I would really like to do is invite you to a meeting with us to discuss this new mindset that the Rapid Africa Plan has got on a new approach. And I will be approaching Mau Mau as well. And so that's really my contribution. I'm very pleased with your analysis. But as I say, we work on Ubuntu principles, which is the actual African financial systems. And we did approach the Rapid Africa Plan in 2021 after I worked with the plan for 9 months. And I don't think at the time they could grasp it. So if you are available to have a conversation with me, Brother Kwame, please give him my number. I am in the group that you have, even though I don't attend. But thank you very much. It's a very good presentation. Thank you.
All right. So, Sister Teresa, if you're the Sister Teresa I know, then yes.
GAC trustee Teresa, yes, the same one.
Yeah. So Brother Kwame is also in the group. So maybe yourself, myself, and Mr. Gonza can meet and have a discussion on that.
Brilliant. I'd love that.
Excellent. So Mr. Gonza will arrange this meeting after this meeting, yeah?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Brother, thank you, Sister Teresa. Brother Patrick.
Yes. I just would like to say, I don't think time would do justice. I wouldn't really like to raise no in no new point of conversation or argument. But I would like to say very much thank you to Brother Gonza.
Brother Patrick,
I'm
do you have
with
a
him.
question?
I'm always with him. We're
Brother
almost
Patrick.
of the same
Brother
mind.
Patrick, do you have a question?
Sorry?
Do you have a question?
No, that's what I was saying. I wouldn't bother to raise a question. There's so many I could raise, but
Raise at least just raise
we
the most
don't have the time.
Raise the most important one.
Give him 2 questions.
No, I think the questions that were asked are important enough. I don't want to raise another one.
Okay.
I would rather have a clarification on some of the ones that were raised already.
Okay.
Rather than just a necessary raise on the other one.
All right, carry on.
Like which one, please? Do you want a clarification on?
Well, like the questions that are asked, and I think Brother Kwame answered them quite well, but I would just like to enforce is that, and what you said as well, when we're saying what system will be used, should be considered, should it be capitalism or should it be socialism? No, it's got to be the will of the African people.
Yes.
And it's either that the peoples, we gonna help the people through education, or not say education, no disrespectful way. But what I mean is through education, it means of what we are doing now. That's why I was gonna say thank you. Because 2 years ago, I couldn't speak to you in the way I'm speaking to you again. 5 years ago, I was a lost sheep because there was no one to speak to. Now we can. And through these type of conversations, we can educate ourselves to see what we want for ourselves. Not other people's idea for federalism is or what this is or what this, but what is, as Brother Kwame said, we are communalism people. Do we know what that means and what it's got to offer? Do we have to jump to other people's idea of federalism or this or that? No, we don't. We need to get into the minds of the African people to a point where we will start dying for our own cause because it's our cause. That way we can elect leaders and things like that, and the people will stand up for what we believe in. That is our responsibility at the moment in my mind. So I don't know if I'm making sense, because I don't necessarily think we have time to go much more.
Brother Patrick, you are making sense, yes.
Much more into that. But what the philosophy is very important. What is the African philosophy? What do we understand about who we are as a people on this earth for so long? What have we contributed to the world, and which part of it we need to fight for and maintain, and still insist that we will continue to be that and contribute that, because the world has not been going on without us. Don't take it, say, because the next man say federalism, or he say that he's using those words that they're unique to him. They are our words. So what we need to do is identify what we have offered to the world and start educating ourselves in that day that we stand up for these things. And the only way this can be done is like this wonderful conversation where I'm actually speaking to someone on the continent. It's really beautiful. So, yes, please, that's what I don't want to ask another question. I just want to,
okay, let me respond.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gonza, you want to say something to that? And then I will just add a few words.
Yeah, so one of the things which Nkrumah said in his speeches when Ghana was just getting independence was that Africa had the right, to go ahead and make its mistakes. And one of the things he said in 1958 is that we prefer government, self-government
we prefer self-government. We prefer self-government. We prefer self-government. Sorry, I was trying to help you there.
Yeah, so we prefer self-government in danger than serving in tranquility.
Yeah.
Then he went on to say that Africa has a right to govern and misgovern itself. So
Yes.
what works for us, we will try and do. We will try and do some of the things which these people are suggesting. But if they don't work, we'll drop them. And if they work, we'll adopt them. You see? So we have that opportunity, and we have to insist that it is our right to experiment. If something, if our people craft something and it is working, we have a right to experiment with it, instead of people bringing to us the Millennium Development Goals, World Bank, SDGs. I don't know SDGs are what and what sustainable development goals, all these things which are concoctions, which we don't know about, with even half-cooked people who are not that educated. So Africa has a right to harness some of its most educated, most intelligent, to craft a system, and we test those systems. Once we test those systems and they work, we go ahead with them. If we see they are not working, we drop them. I did this. China had its opportunity of experimenting until they found what works. Mao experimented with a great leap forward, and it did not work. They dropped it and adopted a different thing, because they saw that this one is just killing our people. I think they say more than 20 million people died because of famine, because they were experimenting with them. This was experiment. So, and now who is to say that if imperialism was there, 20 million people would not have died? So you have a right to experiment at every. So you experiment what works. Now, did they not find what worked for them? They found what worked for them. Like I said, they started with communism and socialism, and they went to capitalism. Now they are saying they are going back to socialism. They have to redistribute the gains of capitalism. So which kind of system is that? So you cannot define it. So nobody should be defining as socialism, capitalism, what is all a waste of time. Is not scientific. So I think that would be my addition to your point. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, what I would add is that, let's be clear, when we talk about capitalism, essentially we are saying that a few individuals should own the means of production. And when we say socialism, we mean that not a few people, but the community, the group should own the means of production. It's about ownership and control. That's what this is about. Now, let's remember that, you see, capitalism and socialism, as terms that have been coined, are not ours.
Yes.
But they are not ours. Now, what is it that we Africans, in terms of economic system, what is it that we can do that is African? And the answer is that Africans, in terms of economics, are communalists. They're communalists, which means that one individual does not own everything, and then we become slaves to that person. Now, this system, however, was non-scientific, by which we mean that it did not have modern scientific technology. It wasn't based on, for example, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in its modern sense, because of slavery and colonialism. They robbed us of these things. So what Nkrumah was saying, so Nkrumah talks about scientific socialism, let's remember what he meant. He meant that communalist Africa must adopt modern scientific methods and then modernize itself. And that's what he meant. And that is why he did not accept the kind of class system or class struggle that Marx was preaching. Because Nkrumah said, why go down that route? Why create capitalists and then destroy them by overthrowing them, as Marxism wanted? Why don't we just create a society without these individuals owning everything? You see, so let's bear that in mind. So what I'm saying is that we look neither east nor west. We are not into all these, whether we are with the capitalist bloc or the communist bloc. That is, for us as Africans, we are not interested in all that. We, as Mr. Gonza is saying, we want to do what works, which is what Nkrumah said. So we want a system that will work for us. And as Mr. Gonza said, we have a right to experiment. You see, so to summarize, I'm saying that for us, the issue is not for us. Capitalism and socialism are not for us. They are not for us African things that we want to fight over. What we want to fight over is what will work for our people. What will work for our people. That is for us what we want. And the communalist system, where The community looks after everyone. Everybody gets looked after. We care for one another. That system is what we want. You know, so I just want to add that to it. The time is 21:48. So that's 12 minutes to 10. And even when we do our classes, we finish at 9. So we have really gone far. If it's okay with everyone, if there are no questions, I see Marlene's hand is up. Marlene, do you have a question, Marlene? Marlene, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, ask your question, and maybe your question will be the last one, and then we'll bring the meeting.
Gonza, I really agree with everything you said. That's why I've been so quiet. What I would like to ask is, do you think with the help that you said, hopefully we'll end up getting from China and Russia, and because we're not industrialized, do you think they will supply us with an industry or help us to develop it? That's my question.
Okay.
Yes, you may respond, sir.
Yeah, I think it was 2014. There was an African China-Africa summit which happened. I think it was in Johannesburg. In one of those, in one of the speeches which were given, Xi Jinping gave his speech. President Xi Jinping of China, he said that China is in a position to help Africa in technologically in every way, because China now has access to all the types of technology. So even when you go back to 1960, 1965, 1966, before Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown, there were nuclear reactors were on their way from the Soviet Union to Ghana that time. So I think that should be able to answer your question regarding technology. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't exactly get that. Are you saying they
answered your question?
Are you saying they will be doing it, or they
says
won't?
yes. Yes,
yes, it is possible.
Thank you. Because I know back in the, I don't know, 70s or 80s, China wanted to put some industry in the Caribbean, and the Americans blocked them from doing it. I think they wanted to put a car plant or something to make plants and do things like that there, and they stopped them doing it, and I think eventually they went to India and done it. So
thank you, Sister Marlene.
I'm just hoping they won't be able to continue blocking, you know, the development of the Caribbean and Africa, especially Africa, because until Africa get on its feet, Black people will never be looked up as as anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if we all know this, but one of the reasons for the overthrow of the Nkrumah government in 1966 was precisely the point that Mr. Gonza is making and Sister Marlene asked, because we understand that the Chinese at the time, the Russians at the time were going to bring some serious technology onto the continent.
Yeah,
serious technology, and the Americans will have none of it. It was some kind of weapon system, very modern weapon system. Because just remember, there were Chinese in Ghana. I mean, right now there are Chinese in Ghana. People are saying, well, too many Chinese. During Nkrumah's time, the Chinese were there as well, helping us. So the relationship between Ghana and China, or Africa and China, goes a long way back. Anyway, Sister Mbadanka, you haven't said anything. I know the name because of brother Mbadanka, the brother. I just wondered, did you want to say anything, or you just want to remain quiet in this meeting?
Don't worry.
Don't worry.
Yes, dear. It's nice to hear you.
I wasn't intending on saying anything. I've been kind of in and out, I've got, domestic situation to deal with. But I'll just say thank you once again for a very, very important discussion, and a very, what word you use to say, apt and timely discussion to deal with what is facing our people. And I think these discussions are more than needed. The more of us that are talking in this way, picking up Nkrumah's legacy and trying ways to, bring it into fruition, to bring it into life, to manifest it, is so, so important. So I just want to thank you again, my brother, for the hard work that you are doing in uniting, trying to unite our people and get us working in an organized fashion. And also to the brothers and sisters who are on the call today, on the Zoom today, once again, thank you for your participation. And I've enjoyed what I've been able to hear. Tendamore.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Kai, I think you've said it all. I don't even need to say it. Thank you so much. I think with that, it's okay to bring the meeting to a formal close. We shall be in touch with you all as to whether we'll continue next Friday. But I know Sister Ida is very keen. We have a second session, so we'll definitely consider it. So thank you all. Brother Ellen, please reserve your question for the next meeting, okay? Is that Brother Ellen here? I think he's, or is he gone?
Can I say something?
He's gone. He has gone, but there's one person who hasn't said anything.
Who is that? Brother or sister Asmau Sambo.
Yes.
Yes. Please, did you want to say anything? Brother or sister Sambo? I don't know if you are male or female because of I don't recognize the name, but the name Mau is there. Mau in my language means God.
She's a female. She's a female.
It's a female. Yeah, I thought so, but I wasn't sure. Do you recognize the name, Brother Gonza?
Yes.
Which country would that be?
Ayabata, she's from Ghana. She's my fiancée.
Woohoo!
Right.
Okay, wonderful.
Asmau, okay. Because the word Mau is God in my language, you see. And the Gans also say, the Gans are where Sister comes from, I think. And they also say Mau, which is God. Anyway, thank you all. I think Sister Badanka has said it all. Have a good night, everyone. And,
I want to just quickly. I hope Friday will be considered, please. I do want an extension, but not Friday because it clashes with something.
Right, we'll consider it then. Yeah. Sister
Mali maybe once a month, not every Friday.
Yeah. So, Brother Patrick, Sister Mali will be in touch with you for that discussion. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks, wonderful
good night.
Have a nice. We don't return.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.